Hi everyone. On board Luckyfish we try and be as energy self-sufficient as possible without relying on a gasoline-powered generator. This video shows a unique hydrogenerator installation on our Warram Tiki 38 catamaran and the performance that we observed over a 1,000-mile sea trial. The hydrogenerator has proven to be able to supply all of our energy needs, particularly at night time when solar is ineffective. If you enjoy our videos and want to help us make more productions, then for as little as the cost of a cup of coffee per month, you can become a patron. And to all of our existing patrons, we'd like to extend our warmest thanks. Now, let's go to the video, the installation of a Watton-Sea hydrogenerator. We do hope you enjoy it, and thank you for watching. Well, hi everyone, I'm travelling from Clark's Court Bay this morning with Hervé, supervisor, electronics installer and general expert on all things electronic at Grenada Marine, to take a look at some installations of Watton-Sea hydrogenerators on a variety of boats. So it promises to be a very interesting morning.
Yes, so we'll go and see a couple of boats with Watton-Sea generators. Mechanic department, system department and a metal department.
So this is quite a large catamaran, isn't it? Lagoon 57, is it? Okay. Well, that's the first decent look I've had at one. So the idea is that you pull on a down rope to deploy it, and then there's a lifting rope as well, which is this one here. It travels up over the top through a blocked bear and then up. And on this boat, it looks like they've set it up with a purchase system.
Yes, this is a main system.
Yes, homemade system. And this boat has two Watton-Seas, which I find a bit surprising actually. I would have thought on a, like a big cat like this, which is probably very energy dependent on a generator. Obviously they don't like running the generator if they can avoid it.
I have a lot of clients ask me to don't want to depend only on the generator.
No.
That means if the generator stops, they can still be comfortable in a place and live with just the natural, and they don't have to rush in the marina. If the generator stops, rush in the marina to fix the generator, and you're breaking all your crew.
Yeah.
Feeling for the vacation.
Yeah.
It's not what you dream when you come and sail in the Caribbean. It's to.
No, that's very true. So yeah, it's a useful backup or redundancy in your power supply. It means that you can prolong your holiday. It's got to be a good thing. Irv then took me to see a Watton-Sea that had sustained some damage. The boat had a beautiful copper coat bottom job, just like Luckyfish. The whole green and environmental, and also, it just minimises a lot of work every year. It's encouraging to see so many boats in the Caribbean doing the right thing environmentally. As for the Watton-Sea, the two plastic gudgeon bushings had failed during high winds in the marina, so there wasn't much to see there.
Go back.
Yes.
And it's only the two plastic parts.
Yes.
The two plastic parts here broke. But no damage at all for the water generator.
What was it? Impact? Do you think that, like impact with an object?
I think it's in the marina. The boat going to the pontoon. We have a big wind.
Yes.
Wind
Yes.
in the night. It was around 1 month ago.
Oh, I see.
A big wind in the night.
Yeah.
And all the line get a little loose.
Yes.
And this wind and touch the pontoon in the back.
I see.
But nothing break on the Watton-Sea. Just these two plastic parts.
Plastic parts, yeah.
20 euro.
Almost sacrificial.
Yeah, exactly.
Irv showed me their office, and we made arrangements to install our 300 watt unit that had just arrived from France. This is probably a prime piece of Grenadan waterfront property, and it happens to be your office. I find that incredible. What a spot. Glorious. The yard office. Well, they don't have any attendance problems with this company. Back at Luckyfish, Irv and I had some more discussion about where to mount the unit. Having double-ended hulls, the Warren was never going to be a conventional transom mounting. We solved this by selecting a spot under the forward cockpit, forward of the starboard engine, and we designed a bracket that would suit the Warren. This has proved to be a good safe location to raise and lower the unit. This stainless steel bracket has been mounted with rubber backing pads, but it may not be necessary. We'll know when we do the sea trial if there's any vibration into the boat, but from what Herv is saying, we shouldn't expect any vibration at all. So the uphaul and the downhaul control lines come up through the deck and around a turning block and then straight across to a winch. Watt and C recommend a 6-to-1 purchase on the uphaul. And in our case it was easier to solve the uphaul by using a winch that we have on hand rather than additional blocks where there really wasn't a lot of room in there to put a 6-to-1 purchase. I'd read that the unit only requires servicing once every 2 years. Irv explained to me that this was to replace the prop shaft seal, which in turn protects the bearings from seawater. By doing this every 2 years we should get a long life from the bearings. So that was really very little. You only had to pull that about 8 inches or 200 mil, and that's pulled it fully up, and then to release it's just a matter of taking the tension off the winch, and when the boat's moving through the water likely we'll need to pull on the green downhaul line to fully extend the leg. Okay, well that covers the mechanical side. What about the electrical side? So on the electrical side, we're down here in the starboard hull. I'm down here with Dwayne and we're going to have a quick look at the electrical connections on the starboard battery bank.
So from the hydrogenerator,
yes,
we come in and we go into the converter,
okay, so
which is also known as a regulator. So it passes through the converter.
yes,
From the converter, it comes down, go to our battery bank.
yes,
But standard, ABYC, standard, we should protect the cable
yes,
before the regulator or the converter and before the battery. So what we did, we installed 2 mega fuse holder using the
yes,
required fuse of 50 amps,
yes.
and we installed it right here.
Let's have a look at those fuses, mate. That's
Yes.
a pretty solid fuse, 50 amp, right?
Yeah, it's a mega fuse and
Yeah.
it's durable.
And so that cabling is AW6?
Yes, it's gauge 6,
Yes,
gauge 6, and also gauge 8.
and gauge
Based on the distance.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, so we have the gauge 6 here, and we have the gauge 8, because the gauge 6 goes to the port side, and so we have to upsize the cable, and the gauge 8, which is smaller, that's because the battery bank is closer, so we use the gauge 8, which is required. It might seem complicated, but it's an easy system. It's a
safe system.
It's a safe system.
So there's basically protection for the batteries at every stage of wire.
Yes.
From the hydrogenerator to the controller.
Yes. And to the battery.
And to the batteries and to the batteries in the other hull.
Yes.
Every linkage is fused. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Not only for the battery, but for the cable most of all, because just in case the cable shift or
Yes. Yes.
make contact, positive and negative, we don't want it shorting out and having to burn through. So we protect it with the fuse.
Yeah, I see. With the hydrogenerator installed and the other work on the boat finished, it was time to put Luckyfish back into the water and sea trial the unit. We will cover all the other boat work in a future video. We just left Grenada, where did we leave? Clark's Court Bay Marina, and we're motoring out straight into 15 knot trade wind down the channel, and then we'll be able to turn to our west and head around the south end of the island shortly. It's very exciting. Everything's working tickety-boo, engines are running fine. We've got three things we want to test on this little trip. Firstly, we want to keep an eye on the lashings, the new lashings, make sure they stand up to it. We'll have a look at those when we anchor tonight, Grand Anns. We want to check the Watton Sea. We haven't put it in the water yet, but we want to test, give it a little trial and make sure it's putting out the amps. We'll do that when we get sail up very shortly. So Zaya, what does it feel like to be out sailing again? You sounded really excited when we first just left the marina. Yeah, it was a bit rough coming out, but it's certainly settled down nicely now. We've got goose wing jib and foresail and doing what, 6, 7, 8 knots? 7 knots. So what is it, day 2? Well, how far did we go on the first day after leaving Grenada? 176 miles. Pretty good. A bit over, yeah. That includes leaving the dock and getting out of the lee of the land and all that. So this next run, if it holds, could be even better. We'll see if the wind holds. But the exciting news was the Watton Sea. It's buzzed away all night, humming along, putting out quite a lot of amps. And we left Grenada with about 60% charge in the starboard bank, about the same in the port bank. And then all night we ran the radar, the chart plotter, the tricolour. It's probably about 6 amps in those 3 things, plus the AIS. And then on the porthole we have the 2 fridges, 1 fridge freezer and a fridge, and they're drawing another 5 amps, so there's probably 10 or 11 amps getting burned last night. And the Watton Sea still managed to put probably 2.5 amps into both battery banks all night long and charge them up to full capacity this morning. Pretty impressive. And now the batteries have just been sitting there topped off all day, they're just on floating. And we don't know what to do with all the power. We think we might have to start selling it. But it's been funny watching it get hit by weed. We go through the Sargasso weed and it does a bit of a vibrate for a few minutes. You can feel the hum go through the boat and you know there's some weed on the leg, but it shakes it off. It just, I don't know, as the waves rise and fall up and down the leg, they tend to just dislodge the weed. So we haven't had to haul it up and clear it by hand, so that's been really good. Well, it's dawn on the 5th day of sailing from Grenada to the Bahamas, and also the 5th day of testing of the Watton Sea hydrogenerator. It really hasn't had a thoroughly good test on this trip because we've had quite high boat speeds in the 7 to 9 knot range much of the time, and so the hydrogen has just been pumping out the amps. The batteries have never dropped below 95%. Most of the time they've been topped right off and it's just been in a floating state, both battery banks, and that's been running probably 10 to 13 amps of demand from the 2 fridges and the radar, plotter, etc. You know, that side of it, yeah, it performs. The real test though is in the lighter winds when the boat speeds are down around the 5 knot mark, and we were at that sort of range last night over the last, let's say 10 hours or so. And so it's a good opportunity now to just check on the state of charge in the batteries. And it's good, it's heartening to come down here into the galley saloon this morning and look at the port side battery bank and see that they are virtually topped off, which is great. I mean, it's such a change for this boat to see this state of electrical power. So it seems to have done the job. I've got no doubt that the batteries on the other side are probably the same. I'll have a look later. Another 12 hours or so of running the boat at this sort of speed of about 4.5 to 5.5 knots, that'll be the real test. We'll see if it can keep up with this electrical demand. Alright, until then, cheers. Well, this is the starboard hull where the battery bank is 210 amp hours. It runs most of the nav gear. Yeah, the news is good. Again, after a night of quite light winds and slow sailing speeds, 4 to 5 knots. The battery, the state of charge here is 97%. When it's in floating state, it'll go up to 105. So, virtually topped off. And on the discharge charge side of the coin, this is running just chart plotter at the moment. The tricolour, I'm about to turn that off. It's about an amp. AIS, what else we got on up there? And the Triton gear. So we're probably drawing off this set of batteries about 5 amps currently, or more. It's discharging at half an amp, but there is charge going into the other batteries, of course. And there you go, it's just flicking between discharge and charge. So, don't ask me about the intricacies of how the controller works, but it's interesting to see that the starboard hull bank, which I expected or was told would receive 100% charge first, and then the charge would flow to the port hull bank. Well, that's not the case. It might be true when the starboard hull bank gets to a certain state of charge. It may be not 100% though, it may be 90% or 80 or 70%, I really don't know. But it's clear that the port hull bank is receiving a significant amount of charge from the hydrogenerator long before the starboard hull bank is fully charged. So this ammeter is simply reading the charge that's coming into the starboard hull bank and doesn't tell us anything about what's going into the port hull bank, so you're only getting half the story. But regardless of that, you can read the states of charges of the batteries and look at it over a period of time and weigh it up against boat speed and form an impression about what the performance of the hydrogen is like. And so far I'm pretty impressed. Normally you wake up on this boat after a night of sailing, you certainly wouldn't be running the gear we're running currently. It would all be heavily moderated, turned on and off as we need it, and we'd still be down to 60 or 50% charge in both hull banks, and then we'd be waiting for the sun to do its trick during the day. So this hydrogen on passage making anyway has just turned everything around completely. It's a different state of affairs when you've got more power than you can use. It just makes you wonder what you can be doing with it. Anyway, all good. Cheers. One of the criticisms you regularly hear about hydrogenerators is the problems with weed getting tangled with propellers, and it's certainly a valid criticism. We started encountering sargasso weed off the coast of Brazil, and it was occurring as these huge ribbons, miles long, just a few metres wide, but stretching for long distances. But since arriving in the Caribbean, we've found that perhaps those big colonies of sargasso have broken up into small patches that are fairly evenly distributed all the way across the route that we've just taken. And we're still encountering them here in the southern Bahamas. So there's certainly a problem for hydrogenerators. What I've noticed with the Watton Sea is that generally you'll get small pieces of sargasso that will get tangled around the leg. They'll wrap around, and more often than not they'll just dislodge themselves and wash away. Or a larger piece of sargasso will come along and do the job for you and just wash the small pieces away. However, occasionally a clump of weed will sit there for 30 minutes or so, and you'll get a little bit of vibration through the boat telling you that there's something on there, and in the end frustration leads to wanting to get it off. It's been pretty straightforward exercise to dislodge it. I simply release the downhaul rope let the leg float up to the surface, the propeller just sits there cavitating, and the weed just washes away. Pretty simple. And I suppose I've done that in the last 7 days a dozen times, maybe 15 times or so. And that's out of having weed trapped on the leg probably at least once every 20 minutes. There's a piece getting on there. So all in all, not too bad. And it makes me wonder about the towed type generators, you know, with a long piece of rope and a prop on the end that spin. I reckon after a few dozen times of hauling that rope in and getting the weed off the prop, you'd quickly get tired of it and probably give up on the hydrogenerator until you got into a weed-free area. It's just my personal opinion, but so far the weed, there doesn't seem to be an easy solution, but with this particular unit, I guess it couldn't be much easier than just raising it and then lowering it.